Can a cat become a millionaire? Well, depending on your perspective, some cats already are. Take a look at Choupette. That's the name of Karl Lagerfeld's beloved pet cat, who lived with him from 2011 until his death in 2019. Lagerfeld and Choupette were inseparable. In fact, Choupette didn't even start off as Lagerfeld's cat at all. She was given to him by one of his models, Baptiste, while she was still a kitten. Lagerfeld claimed Choupette was a Christmas gift. However, rumors swirled that the designer was only meant to babysit the kitty. He fell so in love with her, though, that he refused to turn her back over to Baptiste when he returned from vacation. Lagerfeld spoiled Choupette for the rest of his life. The two went around the world together on jet planes, stayed in 5-star hotels, and presumably only ate the best that Fancy Feast had to offer. Before his death, Lagerfeld liked to joke Choupette was already a millionaire and would one day become an heiress, and at least part of that was true. Choupette scored a number of sponsorship deals. Lagerfeld regularly received million-dollar checks on the cat's behalf. Lagerfeld's heiress remarks caused a lot of speculation on his death. Rumors swirled that he had left $150 million to Choupette to fund her jet-setting lifestyle. Lagerfeld went to a lot of trouble to make sure the details of his will would remain private, but still, Choupette's continued life of luxury seemed to confirm the pampered pussycat had become a member of the 1%. Her ongoing endorsement deals, some of them worth as much as $3 million a year, only added fuel to the fire. And this begs the question, can an animal really inherit money? Well, the answer is it depends. On Lagerfeld's death, legal experts addressed the rumors. They explained that it mattered where Lagerfeld had chosen to execute his will, and this is because different European countries have different laws regarding animals' legal status. For example, in France, where Lagerfeld spent a lot of his time, animals are considered property. Property can't legally inherit material wealth. However, an animal can still be named as the beneficiary of a trust in a French will. A trust is an estate left behind to take care of a person or thing after someone dies. Often, rich people will establish charity trusts when they die. This makes sure money goes towards a cause they believed in, like poverty or education. Other times, wealthy people will leave behind trusts to care for their loved ones. Instead of leaving their family money directly, people will put the money into a trust, which is managed by a person called a trustee. This is a trusted friend or employee of the person who died, usually an attorney. The trustee will distribute money to the beneficiaries named in the will. Beneficiaries can also appeal for access to money under special circumstances. This makes sure the people inheriting the money don't blow it all in one place. In the case of an animal, a trust can be set up to make sure it's cared for after its owner dies. Instead of distributing money, the trustee would be a caretaker who'd make sure the animal was fed and cared for. As an incentive, these arrangements usually give the trustee a large yearly salary as long as the animal stays alive. And there may also be other perks. These could include the trustee getting to live with the animal in a mansion or use luxury cars to transport the animal. What made Choupette's case more interesting was that Lagerfeld may have written his will in his native Germany. Germany actually has a legal stipulation that allows animals to be the direct inheritors of their owner's wealth after death. This means if Lagerfeld wrote his will in Germany, Choupette would directly inherit that $150 million. No trustees needed. Of course, even the world's richest cat needs someone to drive them to the vet and their catnip dispensary. So, regardless of the situation, Lagerfeld's will had instructions in it for who would take care of Choupette. Now, Choupette is far from the only animal to make it big upon an owner's death. Leona Helmsley, the 1980s real estate tycoon who was dubbed the Queen of Mean, really only loved two things in life. Those were money and her white Maltese, Trouble. When Helmsley died in 2007, she cut most of her relatives out of her will, but left Trouble $12 million. Details of Helmsley's will were more open than Lagerfeld's. Upon her death, Trouble went into the custody of Helmsley's brother Alvin. He was supposed to use the money for the dog's care and upkeep. Trouble's other inherited assets also included a stretch limo and her own personal pet store. Now, at some point, word got out that Alvin wasn't providing Trouble with the life to which she was accustomed. The courts executed a clause in the trust that ended with Trouble being taken to Florida on a private jet. There, she spent the rest of her days living at Helmsley's Sandcastle Hotel in Sarasota. And when she died, per Helmsley's instructions in her will, Trouble was embalmed and laid to rest beside her former owner in a 12,000 square foot mausoleum in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, Westchester, New York. Yes, that Sleepy Hollow. Now, these are just a couple of cases which call into question What legal rights do animals have? Most of us know that animals can't do things like file court cases, get driver's licenses, or vote for president, but many places around the world have laws in place firmly establishing animals' legal rights and what people can, can't, and should do for them. For example, in the United States, animals are generally considered property. In divorce cases, the fate of pets is decided similarly to how courts decide who gets the cars and the beach house, or at the very least, that fancy blender. Similarly, the theft of an animal would be treated the same as stolen property, with the level of the crime determined by how much the animal was worth. But an interesting exception to the animals as property rule is when the animal is hurt or abused. 19 states require vets to report if they suspect an animal is being abused, and 6 more states require any civil employee to report. In these instances, animals are legally considered crime victims, and they're listed that way in the police report. The person making the notification is listed as reporting on the animal's behalf. Legally, it's similar to an adult reporting an instance of child abuse. The child may not have the full legal rights of an adult, but they're still considered a victim with rights and named in a criminal investigation. Speaking of crimes, animal treatment is largely regulated by the Animal Welfare Act of 1966. This act grants certain legal statuses to animals. It regulates the treatment of farm and zoo animals, breeding programs, and even lab testing. In fact, in 1985, the act was expanded to create the Animal Welfare Information Center. This is an organization designed to oversee the welfare of animals used in experiments. Elsewhere in the world, animals have even more unique rights. In fact, in some places, they're considered literally holy. In 20 out of India's 28 states, the slaughter of cows is highly regulated and in many cases, even strictly forbidden. This is because of India's status as a Hindu majority country and the sacred status that bovines occupy in the Hindu belief system. Hinduism is broadly opposed to the mistreatment of animals. They believe every living creature has a soul, so eating an animal isn't too far removed from eating a person. About 80% of all practicing Hindus are vegetarians, the largest demographic of vegetarians in the world. Cows have a special status though. They're considered especially important animals. There are several reasons for this. One is the amount of nutritious products that a cow can provide. Most Hindus aren't strictly vegan, and they will eat animal products as long as doing so doesn't harm the animal. So cows are a valuable source of milk, cheese, and yogurt, which are all staples of the Indian diet. This is where the phrase sacred cow comes from. In India, there's also the concept of the cow of plenty, which can provide enough dairy to keep people alive in times of famine. Hindus also believe the goddess Prithvi took the form of a cow, so slaughtering cattle would be disrespectful to her. In fact, Gandhi himself said that if he were starving, he would rather die than eat a piece of beef. But that's only the case in 20 of those 28 Indian states. The rest of the country has a Muslim majority. Islamic dietary law is called halal, and it includes chicken, fish, lamb, and, you guessed it, beef. Now, this has led to an ongoing conflict between the 20 Indian states where beef consumption is taboo and the 8 where it isn't. Now, anytime you throw together one larger, more powerful group who believes one thing and a smaller, less powerful group who believes another, you can get big trouble. And that's what the cows have caused in India. This is because in those 8 Muslim majority states, cows have no legal status. Raising them for slaughter, butchering them, and selling beef isn't any more of a crime than it is in America. And this has led to the rise of cow vigilantes. Yes, cow vigilantes. It's not rare for gangs of armed men to seek out and assault people involved in the cattle industry. In a lot of cases, they stop at beating them up just to send a message. But in other cases, their tactics are more extreme. They may even hijack and destroy trucks containing shipments of beef. Cow vigilantes have been on the rise since 2014, and over the last decade, India has struggled to deal with what's become an increasing problem. Cows are still plentiful though. Whether you see chomping into a burger as a good eat or a mortal sin, cattle aren't going anywhere anytime soon. But that can't be said for every animal, like whales. Whale populations have risen since the end of the 20th century, but only 1.5 million whales remain across 13 types recognized by the World Wildlife Foundation. To put that in perspective, at one point, there were about 250,000 blue whales alone in the ocean. Whales were once almost hunted to the point of extinction for their valuable blubber, oil, bones, and the other resources that they offered. Today, many countries have protections that either eliminate or severely limit the number of whales that can be hunted every year. But other regions of the world still rely on whaling as a major industry, particularly Norway, Iceland, and especially Japan. This has led to the rise of the Sea Shepherds. The Sea Shepherds are an organization run by Paul Watson, a former member of Greenpeace. Depending on who you ask, he was either kicked out of the organization for being too extreme, or he quit because Greenpeace wasn't extreme enough. Either way, the operative word here is extreme. The Sea Shepherds are an anti-whaling organization that operates on the high seas, wherever whales and whalers can be found. You may be familiar with them from the TV series Whale Wars. The Sea Shepherds refer to themselves as a charity and a conservation society. Whaling organizations and the intelligence services of multiple countries have called them vigilantes and terrorists. The Sea Shepherds have engaged in such activities as sinking unoccupied whaling vessels, throwing stink bombs on board boats at sea, and even boarding whaling vessels pirate style to harass the crew, raid and destroy their supplies, and hamper their efforts. If you're wondering if any of this is legal, the answer is absolutely not. Even in parts of the world where whaling is illegal, civilian-operated organizations aren't allowed to take the law into their own hands. To complicate things, much of the Sea Shepherd's activity occurs in the waters of countries where whaling is still legal. This is like if an Indian environmental group came to the US and burned down cattle farms. The Sea Shepherds became enough of a concern that they were one of the subjects of a 2002 US Senate report called The Threat of Ecoterrorism. 10 years later, an Interpol Red Notice was issued against Paul Watson. A Red Notice is essentially a global arrest warrant. They're usually issued against drug lords, war criminals, and human traffickers. In 2009, the Dalai Lama even contacted Watson personally. He told Watson that while he supported his goals, he wanted the Sea Shepherds to stop using violent methods to achieve them. Now, if you have a Red Notice issued against you and the Dalai Lama says you need to check yourself, that's when you know you're in trouble. It's important to note here that not everything the Sea Shepherds do veers into vigilante territory. Different companies have partnered with them to raise awareness about animal cruelty. Also, some countries, including Mexico, contact them to help remove illegal fishing nets. They should still probably listen to the Dalai Lama though. Thankfully, conservation efforts have increased the number of whales in the oceans. Humpback whales have especially made a comeback. In the 1980s, only 50,000 were left in the ocean. Now, there are over 33,000. A lot of this is thanks to the awareness raised by the movie Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. While whale populations may be rising, the same can't be said for every animal species, especially endlings. Endlings are individual animals whose entire species have been driven to extinction. They're literally the last of their kind. Endlings are given special legal protections under the Endangered Species Act, or ESA. This is a law meant to try and prevent the extinction of as many animals as possible. Endlings receive what's essentially hospice care. They're provided with the best conditions, and part of this is so that they can be best studied while there's still time. And it's also because we tend to project human concerns onto animals, and the last of a species dying is a major tragedy. The animals themselves probably have no idea that their entire kind is about to go extinct, but still, we want that one last one to go out with special love and dignity. Before we reach an endling situation, the ESA is meant to preserve animal populations in the wild. If possible, it's also meant to try and restore them to their previous levels. Some parts of the world take this more seriously than others. For example, deforestation is a problem in South America, but some parts of Africa take endangered species more seriously. Due to poachers, some African regions use their militaries and armed guards to protect endangered species. You can't shoot that white rhino if someone shoots you first. From pampered pets inheriting millions to sacred cows, animals occupy a unique place in human society. While they may not enjoy all the legal rights as humans here in America, it's important to remember to always treat them well. Oh, and if you're a dog and cat owner, have your pets spayed or neutered, or else a cat vigilante gang may come knocking at your door. Thanks for watching this episode of Weirdly Legal. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more weird but unbelievably true legal facts.